my grandfather always said, 90% is casting and no truer words have ever been spoken, because there's nothing more exciting than giving the part to somebody and saying, now it's yours, you own this. It's, go do what you like, man. I'm not here to say no, I'm here to say yes, let's play, let's do it. We always talk about how directors sometimes, it's what you don't say, it's not what you do say, because a lot of the time you get in the way of a performance.
Before we really get started, I actually love to go back to the beginning and ask people, what was your first job in this business? The first thing you ever acted in? And I'm really curious because both of you started so young. I mean, you're still so young.
I wonder what that was. No, the first thing I ever did was in actual film was a miniseries called Spartacus, where I played Alan Bates's boy toy.
Really?
It was good days. The late great Alan Bates. I mean, that was why I did it. It was like unbelievable. I got to do the last thing he did.
No commercials or student films before that?
A lot of theatre.
Oh, okay. The student film of the stage.
That's it.
Yes. For you?
Oh, we're really doing this. Okay. What do you mean by first job? Like
Whatever you
the
consider.
first job?
Yeah, the first time you were a professional actor.
I was an extra on General Hospital.
Really?
My mother cried. It was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
There were many other jobs like that after. Too many to... let's not go through it all.
It's all embarrassing. I think... Well, I grew up in LA, so just for fun, my parents would take me to auditions whenever I actually felt like doing it every once in a while. So I think I did a co-star on Party of Five.
Oh, no.
Oh, stop! Really?
I think my title was soccer girl or something. So yeah.
I read for that.
Yeah.
I always wondered who got it.
Run the best.
My first acting job was in high school in a French farce called Thieves' Carnival. Very, very stylized play. And that's kind of why my work turned out to be the way it is.
My aunt's first job was with you.
Over the top, completely over the top, overly articulated.
Ron, my aunt's first job was with you on Ice Pirates. That was her first. That was her first.
That was
job.
her first
That was her
professional
first
gig?
job.
Wow.
First
That was
professional
almost
gig.
my last. That was a good reason to quit the business. But the only thing that actually kept me afloat was Angelica.
I know, she loved you too.
Knowing that we were in that together was like the only thing that made it palatable.
Loves it.
You were talking about a very beloved movie from my childhood. I will not have you besmirch The Ice Pirates.
That's right.
Oh, Ice Pirates. Oh, well, that's a masterpiece.
Well, again, congratulations on a beautiful film. Jack, I'm going to keep saying this because it's not quite sinking in. This is your feature directorial debut. And that's only astonishing to me because it is so accomplished and so confident in what it is. What was sort of the inspiration or the idea that led you to want to tell this story?
I mean, I was in no rush to get behind the camera. I've enjoyed many, many years of being able to watch some of my heroes do that job and realize that I want to stay as far away from it as possible because it looks incredibly hard and all the rest. And it really is. But the inspiration came first and foremost when me and Michael were working together on Boardwalk. I always say I remember him punching sandbags in between takes and at the end of the day going to the boxing gym, as a discipline, as something. He was always such a sort of consummate professional and being part of it, but it sort of kept him in there. And I just always had this image of me standing, in between takes where I would sit there and Mike would just go and start punching something. And it just sort of set in my head. So when I started to conceive the story, I suppose the inspiration was Kubrick's short documentary, which, is 15 minutes. It's the first thing he ever sold in 1951, called Day of the Fight. It followed a then welterweight champion called Walter Cartier, and it's a very simple, he wakes up, goes for breakfast, hangs out with his twin brother, plays with his dog in the park. it's as simple as it comes. And I sort of thought to myself, well, that to me took me back to the films I fell in love with, which is actually the overarching story can be quite simple, but there's one component that makes it complex and gives it that sort of the highest stakes. And that was, well, what if this day was the boxer's last day? And what would you do if it was your last day? Who would you speak to? What would you say? And some, the simple turning of the screw sort of adds so much. And I started to think about that, and those questions started to ruminate. And I remember having a very early conversation with Michael about that and saying, I have this idea for you, which, I don't know if it's anything. And when I really did come up with the story, I pitched it to my wife, who really has no interest in what we do in this business. She falls asleep within 3 minutes of any movie. Whether I'm in it or not, she's like out dead. I pitched her the idea, and she started to cry. And I was like, well,
Wow.
that's the kind of film I want to make.
Wow. Has she seen the movie?
She's in the movie. She plays his mother.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and my son is the young Mikey. So I wanted a real mother and son, because they can't speak, but they have to look at each other with that kind of love. So, and my son is 5th generation of my family on screen. So it was kind of an amazing moment to see him up there. It was beautiful.
And she stayed awake when she saw it.
This might be the first time. The first time she saw it. She didn't stay awake the second time.
And Michael, for you, I mean, he's basically, it sounds like you were his muse for this. I mean, like, he saw something in you, and it had to be you. That's really cool, and also a little bit of a pressure on you. Were you intimidated by that?
I was absolutely intimidated, and I was really intimidated by the fact that it was so difficult to make the movie with me. And that's been a challenge in my career. I want to do independent films. It's where I feel most comfortable, and there's a game and a business side of it that I'm terrible at, and I think it was maybe 2 or 3 people said, we'll give you all the money you need, but Michael is not going to play the role. And
Doesn't worry
Jack
about Michael.
walked out of the room, and he didn't even tell me that. I heard that from. So yes, it was very intimidating. So it was also extremely moving, and it's very important because Jack's been doing this for a very long time. He said he didn't want to rush into it. I would say he's been collecting his skills, and it's not, can you make a movie? It's like, what are you going to make a movie for? What is it going to be about? Is it important? And I think I'm sure I'm speaking for him a little bit, but I'm sure like he's felt that that weight, and so yes, intimidating.
Wow.
Extremely intimidating.
Nicolette and Ron, how did the project find its way to you, and what interests you in your roles?
Well, I'll try to tell like the shortened version of my story. I auditioned for the film. I made a self-tape for it about 9 months before I actually got the film, and at the time, I think I had gotten word that the director loved your performance, but they need to find a name for this role, and so they had moved on. And I had, over the next handful of months, just every once in a while been checking back on IMDb Pro just to see like what person got that role, and I never saw anything, and I just never really forgot about it because I just was so moved by the character and the scenes, and I knew Michael was attached, and who doesn't want to work with an actor like Michael Pitt? And I was finishing up a project in Vancouver called Woman of the Hour.
Yes.
And I was finishing up the project, and I was trying to figure out, that was my first, film in a big way, and I just was like, how do I will something else that feels great like this into my life? And I just kept coming back to that self-tape that I made 9 months ago. And I called my agent, and I was like, do you remember that project, Day of the Fight, that I had put myself on tape for? I was like, that's the kind of project that I just want to work on, and maybe we can set up a meeting with the filmmaker in the new year or something, and maybe we can collaborate on something someday. I don't know. And she said, that's so weird that you bring that up today, because it literally just came across my desk today, and they were going back into production. And I was like, well, can you send me the script? Because I didn't get the script the first time. And so she sent it to me, but she was like, I'm pretty sure they have an offer out already on the role that you want. And so I read the script, and I just was a puddle, and I was so enamored by Jack's screenplay and these characters and the depth that I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I decided I needed to tell him how I felt about it. And I'm trying to be in the practice of telling people when I'm moved by their work, because I know how much that means to me. And so I just wrote this letter to Jack, and I didn't know if I was going to actually send it, but I just wanted to tell him why I loved it so much. And I found him on Instagram, and I just sat with it for a little while, and I decided I'm just going to send it. And I sent it to him, and I ended it saying, you know, I wish you the best of luck on this project, and I hope that someday we can collaborate in the future. And then he wrote me back the next day.
Wow.
And, you know,
Yeah, my wonderful assistant, who's now co-producer on the film, who was running that for me. We laugh because we say sometimes Instagram is probably the only time it's really made a difference, but it really did make a difference here. And he came and showed me this letter, and he said, you got to read this, because he remembered how I felt about Nicolette the first time. And I went back to the video, and I instantly took it to the producers, and I said, and as a sort of caveat, we had been talking to an Oscar, multiple Oscar-nominated actress, and something wasn't working out, and it wasn't feeling right. And the day that we moved on is the day that we got that. Not even the day, like an hour later.
That's amazing.
And the whole film has been like that. So.
Yeah.
And that's Ron too, by the way, which Ron will tell the story. It's one of those moments where we were getting,
Ron wrote a long letter to Jack.
on Twitter.
On Twitter, yeah.
X.
And then I found out Jack's not on Twitter, and so I wondered. I don't remember how I got in the movie. Do you?
Me and Ron worked together many, many years ago on a film that we shall remain nameless. Actually, it's kind of...
It was nameless then, it's nameless now.
Nameless now.
But
we had a goddamn
we
good time.
didn't have one scene together, but we sure shared a lot of time in the bar together at night. I think
Best way you get to know somebody,
There were a lot of bartenders who are still sending us both thank you notes.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting their
We've got a
kids
lot
through
of
school. But I knew that Jack was hell of a drinker. And I said, nah, that's the kind of motherfucker I want to work with. And but I don't remember how I got in this picture.
We hadn't seen each other for a very long time, and we bumped into each other at one of those sort of showboating, bring actors from movies at Toronto Film Festival, where they're like, this is another actor from one of our movies. And we saw each other, and we were like, what the fuck are we doing here? And then we sort of hugged each other, and I was like, this is amazing, because I've written this role, and it's a long shot, but like, you're the prototype. It's you, Ron. It's you. It's insane. And we literally went outside for a cigarette, and out there he was like, if it's any good, I'd love to, get on board. If it's any good, if it's not any good, but
call me either way.
But amazingly, it was one of those meetings where you just see each other, and very much this film came about because of that, like those beautiful twists of fate, where it was meant to be. I felt that across the board, with every piece of casting actually in this, as well as those behind the camera. Our crew, we got the most beautiful, phenomenal crew, working at a fraction of their usual rate because they knew we had no money, and more than half of the crew were actually in the movie as extras because we didn't have enough money for extras. So every now and again I'd be like, hey, go show your ass up there, or to our producer, take your shirt off and go up into the room up there because we just need to make this scene a bit more dynamic. These were decisions that were made on the fly, on the day as we were going along. It's amazing when you have such an incredible group of people who are just so willing to sort of fully put themselves out there, because it's this beautiful collaboration that this film felt. Heaven was making the film. It's been hell getting the film made, and ever since.
Yeah. How many days did you have to shoot?
We had 20 days.
Wow.
20 days, very quick.
That's amazing.
Yeah, very quick. We had 25 days, which they very quickly started taking days away from us.
Really?
And we had a day and a half for the fight, which I always think is
Wow.
absolute testament to Michael's ability. A day and a half for that was something. Yeah, that was tough.
I feel like you can sort of feel the passion from the actors. Like nobody's there for the money, like you said, and the chemistry between all the characters is so real and authentic. Like, and that means Michael and Ron and Nicolette and Michael. I don't know if you had time to get to know each other at all, or if it just sort of developed organically.
It happened really fast, but I mean, that's usually. I mean, even when me and Jack worked together on Boardwalk Empire, we had. I think we had like we didn't really meet.
We said hello as I sat down.
It's a sign of a true professional, a true pro. I mean, with when I was working with Nicolette, I don't know. We had like a couple words, and then we did some great work. And Ron was a miracle because it was a fight, and it was, we were making contact. It hurt, and none of that was really scripted in the corner, and so it was literally Jack screaming, "Fight!" screaming, keep going, and then going back to the corner was. It felt like a fight, and Ron, having Ron in my corner was a miracle. It was a miracle.
Every step of the way, and getting someone like Ron, and Joe, and Steve, it's like we're talking about real beasts in this industry, like absolute titans. So it was an absolute get. And the greatest thing was Ron came on this set, and it's you instantly know who your brother is straight away, like when you first meet. So it was picking up like how we left off. It was beautiful, same as Nicolette and same as Michael. But there are certain people you just know are just gonna get involved, and there's no fluff. They just are in it for the right reasons. It's such a treat, especially being in the chair for the first time. My grandfather always said, 90% is casting, and no truer words have ever been spoken, because I think that's said because, there's nothing more exciting than giving the part to somebody and saying, now it's yours, you own this. It's, go do what you like, man. I'm not here to say no, I'm here to say yes, let's play, let's do it. I think we always talk about how directors sometimes, it's what you don't say, it's not what you do say, because a lot of the time you get in the way of a performance, and Michael says that.
Also, when I just noticed something. When you say 90% is casting, which it's
99%. Sorry.
Well, well, I think maybe it's important to make the distinction between. I think a lot of people think 99% of it is casting means what your number is and how much money you're worth. Those are two completely different things. And what Jack did for me, probably more than everyone else that I'm not, that's, it's wonderful, but he fought for everyone. He fought for the right casting on this film, and man, was it hard. You can't believe how hard it was. It shouldn't be that difficult, but I just thought that maybe to make that distinction, because I know there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, 99% of it is casting. You look the actor up and you see what they're worth, or what television show they're on, or anyway. Sorry.
How many followers they have.
Exactly.
Our producer, Jay, I don't know if this is true, but Jay tells me that Jack lost his voice trying to like fight for me. So like just getting the
He
financiers.
remembers I was on the New York streets and it was in winter, and not only had they like acquiesced to Michael, which was the greatest get of my life, no matter what. Like I wouldn't make the film without him. You sacrifice one thing as integral as Michael, you've lost your film. So there are certain things that I'd be willing to walk away from. But I remember with Nicolette, because they were like, we were going from a multiple Oscar, nominated, maybe even winning actress. And then I was like, I'm sorry, you might never have heard of her. She's a great stage actress, but she's the girl. And I was out on the streets of New York as they were all in the bar. And I was speaking to all the financiers for 3 hours at the end of it, where I lost my voice, and they said, well, now we have to give him thing because
Thank
of the
God.
pain in it.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
and I'm going to guess whoever that other actress was, she wasn't going to write you a song.
By the way, it was an absolute, it's one of the greatest moments of where you get a no.
Yeah.
It's like, this is fantastic. It wasn't a no, by the way.
Yeah.
It was that we couldn't work out dates. It was like she was very invested. Wonderful, but wouldn't have, even shone a light on Nicolette and what she did. I mean, that's my angel over there.
Well, it is such a special film. I want to remind everyone it's going to be in theaters December 6th. Please spread the word and let everyone know. Thank you so much for being here. They're going to stick around.
Thank you so
and
much
talk to
for-
you all for a while.
Thank you guys so much for coming. It means so much to us. And Jenelle, thank you so much.